The Monster Trio have finally earned their title. This combination of Rubber Boy, Sword Lad, and Cookie Guy are now one of the most feared power blocks in the entire world. So is it finally time to defeat an Admiral? Hello and welcome to the Grand Line Review, your source for everything One Piece. My name is Liam and this is a day that I have been dreaming of for quite some time. For as long as I've been reading fictional pirates on their quirky adventures, the concept of beating an Admiral has seemed like an impossible task. So much so that I'm not just referring to the Straw Hats, I mean any character in general. Because when you think about it, the only Admiral in the series who has ever been beaten was defeated by another Admiral. So in terms of statistics, we've had exactly as many Admirals beaten as we have Emperors of the Sea. But their reign on top is done, and now it's time for them to bend over and accept the new generational girth of the Monster Trio. Wow, did I really just say that? But now we need to ask ourselves in all seriousness if Luffy, Zoro, and Sanji could not only take on, but surpass an Admiral. Which we will do after recognizing the Admirals of the day, who are Andrew Sham, Lead Belly Luffy, and Gag Tidges, all three of whom did the amazing thing of pressing the subscribe button for the Grand Line Review, which will result in consistent injections of One Piece culture being administered directly into your YouTube feed. And if you want to be our next subscriber of the day, then please do hit the button and say hi in the comments below if you are a new or even old member of the Grand Fleet. Welcome. Before we move on, this video will contain spoilers for anime-only watchers. Wano has gotten very much wow in the last few months, so much so that I would seriously recommend reading the manga. But there's your warning, and for everyone else, let's do the thing. First up, just how strong are the Admirals? Well, that's a surprisingly difficult question to answer because we've never really seen any of them push to their absolute limits on screen. The closest we've come would probably be Sakazuki versus Whitebeard at Marineford, but given the chaotic nature of that event, it's difficult to draw much from it. And again, the only recorded defeat of an Admiral was by the hand of another Admiral. So from this, we can infer that a Marine Admiral's individual power is roughly the equivalent to that of a Marine Admiral, which is, admittedly, less than helpful. At the very least, there is a form of balance happening here though. Of every group of dudes in One Piece, the Admirals are the most consistent in terms of strength, unlike those fickle warlords of the sea who are sometimes an invincible global god like Mihawk, and at other times they have the power equivalent of a crocodile being given a bath in a zoo, which to clarify is very little. However, a great constant we do have is that it appears each Marine Admiral has access to advanced armament haki, and this is something that we learned pre-time skip, although we didn't understand the correct name or classification for the ability at the time. That's pretty big news though, because the way that haki works is that if you have it and your opponent doesn't, then you're going to win the punching. The only one we can't confirm in this regard is Fujitora and I guess Ryukugyu, but for the purpose of this video, we're very much going to ignore the existence of Ryukugyu because there's nothing solid to explore there. In fact, right now, nobody can even prove that he isn't a cardboard cutout of a silhouetted man, just sort of propped up there as a third Admiral designed to give the rest of the Marines some confidence, like a Weekend at Bernie's style scenario. But most Admirals also seem to possess key advantages that make them the best in their particular fields. For example, KIZARU is currently the undisputed fastest character in the world. No one can outspeed his light travel. Then we have Sakazuki, who possesses the strongest Devil Fruit in terms of raw power. The Magu Magu no Mi has been identified as having the highest offensive capabilities of any Devil Fruit. Although, to be fair, maybe that could just mean that it makes Sakazuki say the N-word every now and then, which would make it by far the most offensive Devil Fruit for sure. When it comes to Fujitora, he does have gravity business, and that sounds pretty glorious. However, his true strength lies in observation haki. Due to the whole self-mutilation thing, he was forced to constantly use and develop that haki, to the point where his senses are probably better than anyone we've ever encountered, with the maybe exception of Silver's Ray Lee. Although he doesn't have future sight, or at the very least we don't know if he does. Wouldn't be surprising if he did, in fact. If anyone should, then it's him. And as for Kuzan, well, he's kind of the exception here. He's a strong boy and everything, but he doesn't have a specific world-class skill that the others don't, except for the ability to chill any drink on a hot summer's day. Oh, and actually he's immune to drowning because he'll just freeze the water. That's probably relevant. Now, as for the Monster Trio, for most of the series, they've not been able to so much as touch an Admiral, nor should they without consent. But we're currently in a space where that has suddenly become very possible. Right now, Luffy is locked in one-on-one combat with a Kaido, while Zoro and Sanji have officially defeated King and Queen. King and Queen being rather big names in this world, worth a whopping 1.39 and 1.32 billion berries respectively, which are both within the top 10 highest bounties that we know of in the series. In fact, the only other commander who currently competes with those numbers is Marco, whose pineapple exterior is valued at the price of 1.374 billion, which was a lot of numbers to say and my tongue almost got confused, but we got there. All of which is to say that King and Queen are considered pretty damn top tier even within their own realm of commanders. And the wings of the Pirate King slapped them both down into the ground so hard that I am certain they became the literal fossils that their powers are based on. So our big question now becomes, where do the Admirals sit in relation to commanders? Are they on a similar level? Are they slightly above it, perhaps the equivalent to the Pirate King's wings? Or is each Admiral closer in power to that of an Emperor of the Sea? Previously, I've been of the opinion that no Admiral could contend with an Emperor one-on-one. So this puts me in an awkward place because after seeing the events of Onigashima, I'm left with no choice to assume that they are well above the commander realm. One, because they've displayed greater haki mastery than either King or Queen did, and two, because of all of the stuff I said earlier. You know, about the powers and things, weren't you listening? My intuition tells me that the Admirals slot somewhere in the middle, well above commanders but below the capabilities of emperors, which I think Whitebeard did pretty succinctly display, because during Marineford, this sick and dying old man more or less took on 100,000 Marines in addition to his little skirmish with Sakazuki, and Whitebeard still prevailed. If it was a proper one-on-one, Sakazuki likely would have been beaten. And that extends into the other emperors as well, because they all have the title of being the strongest of the strong things. Whitebeard, for example, is the strongest man, Kaido is the strongest creature, and Big Mom is the strongest disappointment. I don't mean that. I love Big Mom. She is so much fun, but she does get clowned on by just about everyone. In addition to this, there is also the possibility that several Admirals may be Awakened Devil Fruit users, specifically the Magma Man and the Ice Chad. But due to the gigantic swinging question mark hanging between the legs of this particular idea, I won't be entertaining that thought right now. So here's our first task. Can the monster trio together overcome an Admiral? And here I have no problem whatsoever saying a resounding yes. In a 3v1 situation, yeah, it would be tough. However, Luffy, Zoro, and Sanji are currently a terrifying combination that have everything going for them. Luffy provides the brute force, Zoro provides the potent dismantling, and Sanji provides the food and drink. And you know I'm only half joking there. Canonically, Luffy does draw strength from eating, so having a chef as your support could make him just about invincible. In addition to Sanji being a tactical mastermind, he has the brains that are currently absent from the empty skulls of Luffy and Zoro. But the three of them together are a force that I'm currently unsure could be defeated by any individual in the series. That's how wildly powerful they've ended up during Wano. If someone were to be able to do it, it would need to be either an emperor or a legacy character, like a young Garp or a Goldie Roger, but alive. I don't think Roger's corpse would do particularly well against them, but I might be wrong. If you think there is one character who can take down all three of the monster trio, then let me know in the comments. But now let's take this to a more individual level. Can Luffy defeat an Admiral on his own? I think we'll reach a conclusive answer on this very shortly in Wano, because if Luffy does bring down Kaido, then there's really nothing stopping him from beating literally any other character in the world. But even then, right now, I would say yes. Yes, he can beat an Admiral. Probably. Due to Luffy being the main character, he has the advantage of getting all of the cool stuff. Not only does he have access to advanced armament haki, but Luffy is arguably a step above the Admirals because he now wields advanced Conqueror's haki. And remember that thing I said about haki. If you have it and your opponent doesn't, then you're going to win the punching. Add a demonstrated mastery of Future Sight on top, and Luffy currently outclasses almost everyone in the world when it comes to haki. Right now, there is legitimately no one else who is confirmed to possess all three of these advancements. Not even Kaido, which is just kind of wow. I mean, why don't more people have Future Sight? Now, in defense of the Admirals, each of them are a lot smarter than Luffy and could conceivably outwit him strategically. But if we're talking strictly about power, I honestly feel like Luffy is well and truly capable of delivering an Admiral a delicious dirt banquet, which is my fancy way of saying punch them into the ground. But how about Zoro? He's a much bigger maybe because he doesn't quite have all of the skills that Luffy has to pay his Pirate King bills. However, within the space of one raid, Zoro has become a confirmed Conqueror's Haki user, as well as a confirmed advanced Conqueror's Haki user. And remember the words that came out of my mouth hole? If you have it and your opponent doesn't, then you're going to win the punching. It's conceivable that Zoro has the ability to fight against an Admiral. The biggest concern I have is that his use of advanced conquerors is much more crude than Luffy's. Where Luffy has a bizarre natural mastery of the technique, currently Zoro relies on Enma to draw this power out, which means that he, rather uncharacteristically, isn't very well suited for high endurance combat. If he's fighting someone at an equal level or even at a slight disadvantage, that likely means that Enma is going to suck him dry, and he'll end up like this meme theme of Trafalgar Law. Meanwhile, the Admiral in question will be much better placed in a battle of attrition. Essentially, if Zoro can't win quickly, then he probably can't win at all. So we are going to slap Zoro with a raging maybe and move on to Sanji, who probably has the least greatest chances here. When we're talking about Haki, Sanji has been a little bit neglected as opposed to his other Monster Trio members. He's still stuck with basic observation, armament, and no conquerors. The thing he does have going in his favor, of course, are the German augmentations, which my script has corrected to German augmentations. It needs to stop doing that. But the German augmentations combined with basic Haki seem to allow him to hit hard enough to decimate a certain queen. But it's so much harder to put together an argument for him because the Admiral abilities are just a whole tier above what we know of Sanji. I will say that narratively, it doesn't really matter. One Piece is a work of fiction, and the good guys will win a fight against the bad guys in the right situation, which is something that we are dealing with right now in Onigashima. Straw Hats stomping in situations that perhaps they shouldn't have, like Frankie and Robin facing off against Sasaki and Black Maria, both of whom, for reasons, decided not to use any kind of Haki in their fights, which is obviously because if they did, then it would become harder for the Straw Hats to win, so we should keep that in mind. The Admirals having incredible power becomes a lot less relevant when stories need to be told, but from told to polled, because I asked the Grand Fleet if Luffy, Zoro, and Sanji were at a point where they could defeat an Admiral, and the results were a resounding yes. Although I think that may be because of how I worded the question, because you're kind of forced to answer yes, even if you only think that Luffy could. But even in that case, I can't believe we're at a point where we are even seriously having this discussion. And for more fictional pirates, here is another video, because there's always more to learn, explore, and experience with this wonderful series, so I look forward to seeing you there.